It is a match day in the world of Arsenal. They take on Southampton at the Emirates Stadium looking for a big 3 points. There's some injury news, some Mikel Arteta press conference to break down, and a brand new signing to talk about, which is yeah, that's not normal for October. This is the Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show, joining every single morning at UK time of 8 o'clock. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. It is incredibly appreciated. I hope you had a fantastic week, and I hope you're going to have an even better weekend that will be predicated massively, of course, upon the results this weekend. So I'm not naive enough to understand that need, that desire, and that necessity, of course, for it to be. It's a really big part of the weekend. It's a really big part of the weekend. Obviously, it is, and so therefore we need to make sure that we're getting that result so we can enjoy the rest of our Saturday and Sunday. Good morning to those joining us live in the chat box. Thank you as always for doing so. Tom in the chat, Olawale, Rancid, Aiden, Edison, Amira, Angela, Nikolai, Jean, Rich, Zoom. Damien, Colin, Mark, Lee, Darbas, Carl, Peter, and plenty more of you guys and girls as well. Really appreciate your time, and if you are listening on catch up as well, thank you to all of you and to everybody else as well. Please do drop a like and subscribe to the channel as we help ourselves on our way, of course, to that magical target of 60,704 seats in the Emirates Stadium. We are closing in every single day. I begin today's show with addressing just a comment from yesterday's show. Of course, you will remember that we started yesterday evening's show, yesterday morning show, with the very sad news of Lord Owsley, who sadly passed away, the Kick It Out founder. Sadly, of course, and I do like to address comments on videos that we get left all the time because I think it's important to do so. You will see it as the pinned comment on yesterday's show. There was an accusation yesterday made that there was a reluctance to talk about racism based upon the fact that we brought up Lord Owsley's very sad passing. I think that we can all, and some of you say that I don't even need to address this point because you know how passionate I am about these types of topics, but I want to make it unequivocally clear that we have absolutely no fear, absolutely no issue talking about these very important topics. And so for anybody that still feels that way, my messages, my door, my DMs are always open. Feel free to come to me and have a chat. I'll be more than happy to welcome those thoughts. So thank you. I just wanted to raise that because it did. These things are important to me, and I wanted to make that very, very clear indeed. Right, let's jump into today's stories and get away from the more serious stuff and into our Arsenal-specific stuff. Now, Arsenal in October have completed a brand new signing, and that is the under-15s edition of Joshua Sese from Millwall. Now, I can't say I know all too much about Sese whatsoever, although I do know he is a forward who can play on either side, and that this is a continuation of course, Arsenal's intent to really improve the feeling, the quality, and the strategies behind the scenes of Arsenal's academy. So, if indeed this is your type of bag, then I'm hoping you're going to be excited about a brand new young starlet coming through the ranks at Arsenal, which is, yes, again, very easy to say, very exciting news indeed for the Gunners. But moving to the Premier League and, of course, this weekend's action, Crystal Palace taking on Liverpool in the early kickoff, which means, of course, we'll get our results from Selhurst Park for one of the title challengers. And then there are a number of other sides involved in 3 o'clock kickoffs, of course, including ourselves. Manchester City taking on Fulham, Arsenal taking on Southampton as well. Really important games in the context of the title race. 2 games that both teams will be expected to win. So any dropped points, as well as Liverpool's as well away at Crystal Palace, Any dropped points could be massive in terms of the title race. The other games today are Brentford against Wolves. That's a 3:00 kickoff as well as Leicester against Bournemouth and West Ham against Ipswich. The late kickoff today, very big game at Goodison Park. Everton taking on Newcastle United. Then Sunday, we'll talk more about those games tomorrow, but it's Aston Villa against Manchester United, Chelsea against Forest, and Brighton and Hove Albion take on and Postecoglou's Tottenham Hotspur. We're mates. Arsenal take on Southampton, of course, today. And you can check out our preview show ahead of today's game. I was joined by the fantastic Grant in what is a change structure to our preview shows. We used to have like 3 members on at the same time and have a chat. I'm liking this one-on-one kind of conversation, more chatty version of the preview show. Let us know your thoughts on the new format, on the shifted format, and leave us your feedback in the comment section. As always, it is heavily appreciated and always read by me as well. But we end part 1 with the big story, of course, which was yesterday's press conference from the Shubber Realty Training Centre with Mikel Arteta speaking to the media ahead of the game against Southampton later on this afternoon. He was asked about the latest team news and said that we had to modify our training for a lot of players when asked about Timber, Ben White and Tomiyasu. We've done the same today because of the load that they have had. So that's a decision to make this afternoon whether to involve them, yes or no. They are close, and Tomiyasu as well is quite close to being involved. So good news. I don't think that Tomiyasu is quite as close to start. I might be surprised. I don't have any inside information, but the idea of him kind of separating Tomiyasu in those words from Timber and White makes me think that, well, maybe there is a question mark specifically about him and whether his inclusion is going to be there, but hopefully he'll be ready and fit and properly part of the group after the international break. Jurrien Timber's not been called up to the Netherlands national side, which I think is a little bit of an indication regarding specifically the perhaps the feeling around Timber right now is one of needing to protect him and needing to protect of course, that idea of the load-bearing injury that he suffered. Ben White, hopefully he'll be back. We'll keep those fingers crossed. But we had a good discussion about the right-back situation on yesterday's preview show and what options Arsenal, of course, have got going into this afternoon's game. He was also asked about a couple of other players. He said like Zinchenko probably after the international break if everything goes well. He's progressing really well. Martin, though, is very difficult. I expected still with the boot and a lot of things, and he's working so hard and he's feeling good and is pushing. So it's difficult to give a timeline, which I am not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of course, that scenario of just really there not being any real clarity over how long we are still going to be without Martin Odegaard, but it seems to be potentially extending into and past the next international break. With the arrival of Southampton, it also brings, of course, the return of Aaron Ramsdale. And Arteta was asked about this, and he says, I called him straight away when I got the news of his transfer, and he was really happy. He is a player that we loved a lot. It's very charismatic, and he really put his fingerprints here on the club, which, with the way that he was, it'll be very good to see him. And of course, he was asked about on getting his team to feel that they can overcome any challenge with this title race and with the challenges they're facing after PSG. And he said, that's what we're trying to do. We had a really difficult fixture list after the international break. And on top of that, a lot of unpredictable things happened in terms of injuries and players not being available, but we adapted. We looked forward and we competed really well in all games. For sure, there are aspects that we have to still improve, but we are showing a lot of consistency and adaptability in the way that we can play and win games. I think these are all very positive signs, but it's very early in the season still. The Emirates atmosphere, of course, became something of a question mark on its atmosphere following the PSG game. And he was actually asked about the stadium, what it means. And he says, it's a huge privilege every time I'm sitting there and I'm surrounded by the players, our supporters, and being part of that incredible atmosphere. It makes me proud that we have built something really special here, that our people feel proud and that the players enjoy what they do. Hopefully, we can continue to win a lot of matches. I was curious to see him asked questions also about Kai Havertz, who has been a very important part of the squad we know this season. He says, first of all, when asked about him scoring consistently, which he has now scored in the last 6 Emirates home games in a row, he says, first of all, because he's so good, because he wants it so much, and because he's surrounded by great players with him. The fact that he's gone through some difficult moments just made him a better player and a great person. He continued when asked about him and Trossard playing in a front two. He says, we have to put players in position and qualities where they can feel that they are in their strengths and try to hide our weaknesses as much as possible. Without Martin, we have other things that we cannot do, but we have a bigger threat in other areas and we can make the most out of that as well, which I think is also really, really important. I asked about Kai getting 20 goals. He says he certainly has all the qualities and certainly has the ambition to do that. And in the end, scoring goals sometimes are very small details and a lot of things have to go for you. But he's got it and his mindset has changed a lot in regards to that. He certainly has the ability to do it, in my opinion. Now, lastly, about Thomas Partey, which also was a very interesting part of the press conference. We spoke previously on the channel, of course, about how, there's been not really any indication that the club are looking at extending Thomas Partey's contract at the moment. And so I think that that's really important to point out, because there has, to this point, been absolutely no indications whatsoever. There's been no rumours, no noise, no suggestions, no whispers about a potential new deal. And he was asked about Partey and, of course, his establishment in the team. And he says he's a massive player for us, and he's shown that week in, week out. He started the season really well, really fit. The way he came back post-holiday was probably in the best condition that he's been, which was really helpful as well. Now he needs to continue to do that, and we have managed certain minutes with him in the right way, and the team is doing that. And then he's doing everything he can as well to be in the best physical condition. He was asked if he's playing to earn a new contract, and he says, we play him to find our best version and to be the most competitive team that we can be and try to win every single game. So rather dismissive, I think, when asked specifically about the contract situation. Didn't exactly say the words like, we want him to stay and we see him in our future. It was very much, we have a good team and we want to win games. So make of that, of course, what you will. But the good deal that you can get, and certainly a contract that you should potentially be thinking about signing or extending, is, of course, your partnership with NordVPN, which is the fantastic VPN service and the number one spot on the roster of all VPNs that are out there to give you the best safety and security that you can get when surfing the net in 2024. An absolute must of all your digital accessories these days. And if you go to nordvpn.com/Gooner, you can get yourself a significant discount off a 1 or a 2-year plan with, of course, 4 months extra thrown in free on top of that 2-year deal too. And if you're not happy with the service for whatever reason, you get a 30-day money-back guarantee. Who can say any fairer than that? Well, of course, there's also the opportunity to win a fantastic piece of Arsenal memorabilia, including this signed and framed Gabriel Martinelli shirt, who could be in the starting 11 for Arsenal today. Of course, his stock is very high and you can still get this prize. And there is a 20% discount on the tickets that remain, meaning that £3.16 ticket is available. Was the early bird price. Now it is another discounted offer for you to get your hands on it. There are 67 tickets at the time of recording this morning at 18 minutes past 8. So please make sure that you get involved with the latest competition. UK only, of course, and plenty of other instant win prizes. You can read all about that in the link in the description and on the conditions page too. Right, let's go to part 2 and your questions right after this. Okay, this is part 2 of the show. We jump into the chat box and we tackle as many of your questions as we can. So if indeed you do have any questions, now is your time to jump them in. Use that capital Q to help your questions. Questions, remember. I know people try and hack the system sometimes by just making a statement with a capital Q. That's not how this works. Okay? I don't want people taking advantage of the system. You don't think I don't know. You think I don't notice these things? I notice these things. Right, let's go in, shall we? Phil says, hi, Tom. Keep up the good stuff. Keep fighting and don't let the negativity and naysayers stop you. Thank you, mate. Very much. Look, I didn't say, obviously, bleeds on from the point we made at the start of the video. This is an important topic. Lord Owsley, of course, to my knowledge, and I can't say I'm an expert in his history, but I'm not sure of any kind of specific links to the Arsenal, and this is an Arsenal-related show. But what we do on this show is we regularly talk about discrimination in all of its forms. And so when Kick It Out loses such an important figurehead, I feel the importance of talking about it and talking and bringing up his memory and bringing up his legacy, which of course stands as a really big testament to work that goes into trying to mitigate these awful things every single day. So when you get someone leaving a pretty horrible comment saying that we are, and by the way, for the record, I'll be absolutely clear with you, Their explanation for why I didn't use the word racism when talking about kicking out is because they thought I was protecting revenue streams. If that was the case, goodness gracious me, we would have avoided a hell of a lot of topics that we've talked about on the channel. Long-time listeners of the channel know that was a load of. I was saying that I was using the B word. I will say rollicks for now because I was saying the B word. Someone messaged me the other way saying, "Tom, I thought you didn't swear. I didn't even know it was a swear word. I thought it was just kind of a British word for BS, basically." Apparently, it's worse than I thought. Ethan says, "Tom, can you give us a show? Can you show and tell us what scarves are hanging behind it? The scarves are back. You may have noticed. Of course, I've moved. At the moment, there's a TV that's not in use at the moment behind me, but it is in use in terms of being a stand, if you like, for some scarves. We've got the. I'm trying to make sure I'm not talking away from the microphone. We've got the Gulf Coast Gooner scarf on the far right hand side there. It's just hidden behind the microphone arm there. You've got the Indiana Gooners there. We've got the North Monroe Gooner. North Monroe is red Gooner scarf there. The Cincinnati Gooners, of course, as well behind that. Then we've got a couple of Chicago Gooner scarf because I am, my allegiance, if I am to one, having visited myself, of course, would be the Chicago Gooners one. You've got the Denver Gooners one as well next to that. Our good friends over in Denver as well. And of course, good friend of the show, Andy, who's friends with Mike, of course, on the Gooners pod, hailing from there. And on the other side, we've got the Fort Lauderdale Gooners as well behind me too. So apologies that some of them get blocked up with that. And Damien says, "Where's the light up TGT logo?" That's in storage at the moment, and it will be for a little while, unfortunately. Don't worry, it will be back one day. But there's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes that won't be done for quite a while, sadly. It's things with moving house. You get things in your head about what you want to do, and then things come up, and when you want to work on plans, you want to get them done, but sometimes things get in the way of that, and so you need as best you can to try and adapt to that. And the TGT logo will be back one day, just not in the near future, unfortunately. Ashley says, "Can you play someone after announcing someone being injured for international duty? For example, Tommy Asu has been training for a week, so if Arsenal said he's probably not ready if he was to play, is that disrespectful?" Well, you could certainly interpret it that way. We've done it before. Gabriel Martinelli played for us against Manchester City coming off the bench and scored the winning goal after Arsenal told the Brazilian national side that he couldn't. Well, not that he couldn't, but just kind of they advised that he probably shouldn't play for the national side. And there was reported stories of a bit of a frustration from the Brazilian national side, so much so that after that situation, of course, when Gabriel Jesus had a bit of a problem and the club preferred that he didn't go to international duty with Brazil, they said, no, we're going to take him and assess him ourselves because of the whole, obviously, I think from some of the fallout of that Martinelli situation. So, yeah, look, it does happen. It can happen, but doesn't mean that it should happen. Doesn't mean that it shouldn't happen. I think if a player is needing to manage their minutes, but of course, for some, let's be honest, some Nations League games, like Timber is not a integral part of that Netherlands team since coming back from injury at the moment. They've been coping well without him. So I think it's right that he's allowed to manage his minutes. And when the really big, important games come for the Netherlands, he can, of course, be involved with them. SN says, "Did you see the comments that Moreno is a bit of a beast in training and will not be removed as soon as he becomes a starter?" From who, SN? Who said these comments? I'd love to know where they came from. Alex says, "Do you see any future for Vieira and Lokonga at Arsenal? I've been watching both of them on loan and they look woefully short of the mark. I feel they're both something of a failed risk." I think, Alex, you probably answered your own question, and I agree with you. I don't see a future for either of them at the club at the moment. Angry Pacifist says, "Do you think if we get to 4-0, the players' relationship with Ramsdale will prevent us from going to 5, 6 or 7? They're still human. I've never been so conflicted with a former player before." I don't know. I'd hope not. You'd assume not. You'd assume that it would be as soon as you cross that white line, it's a different story. As soon as you cross that white line, doesn't matter who's on the opposite end of the field. You are going to try and win and you are going to try and score as much as you feasibly can. So I really hope that that's not the case. But I get the conflict. Mentally, that's going to be a very interesting scenario. But look, I'm not thinking of 4, 5, 6, 7 goals. I'm thinking of just getting the first one. That's all that matters at the moment. Jean says, "I like the new format of the pre-match shows, but missed the contact and thoughts from more fans. I wish maybe it was a bit of a mix, maybe having 3 prior to Premier League games and a new format before other matches as well." I see where you're coming from. Obviously, we've run with 3 guests for a long time, and we're now trying out the one-on-one feature, which we'll continue to do for a bit and see how that goes down. I think it creates a lot of conversation. I think it takes the pressure, of course, getting 3 fans on each week as well, which sometimes, people have got jobs, people have got lives. So I think it's important that we try and change to suit the best suitability of things. Ethan says, do you think Ten Hag will have a job after this weekend? Of course, Manchester United take on Aston Villa away from home. I wouldn't expect them to win that game. I hope so. I sincerely hope he still has a job after this weekend, because I don't want Man United changing manager unless, of course, it's for Gareth Southgate. I'd be very much on the end of liking that. Simple Unity says, hi, Tom. In your opinion, who do you think is better between Saka and Palmer? Because I've seen some Chelsea fans online claiming that Palmer is better. That's just rivalry talk, isn't it? Like, it's just rivalry talk. This season, if you look at Cole Palmer's numbers, of course, he's got a better return rate in terms. I think Saka's got something like 1 goal and is it 6 assists, I think, this season so far for Saka. But I think there's obviously differences when you've got someone like Cole Palmer, where the Chelsea system is effectively tailored to get the ball to Palmer, get Palmer to shoot. That's kind of the situation. That's why I was never the biggest fan of Ivan Toney either. So far, he's got 10 goal contributions, 6 goals, 4 assists in 8 games, which is incredible. Saka's got 7 in 9 right now. So this season, individually, you could argue that Palmer has had a better season so far, but there's obviously a lot of context to things, and I think Saka's done it over a longer period. And so right now, Saka, of course, I think would be considered overall the better player. I think if Palmer was in this Arsenal team, it would be different, and there would be differences that you would perhaps see. They're both amazing players. They're both really, really good players. I think you can appreciate both of their qualities. Of course, we don't like the fact that Palmer's doing really well for Chelsea for obvious reasons, but I think you can appreciate those scenarios. This will be the first season, of course, that Arsenal really face Cole Palmer with Chelsea. He wasn't necessarily a figure in the side when we faced them, in that draw back at Stamford Bridge last season. I think he came off the bench, if I'm not mistaken. I'll see if I can find the lineup from that game. I'm pretty sure I remember him coming off the bench in that game and didn't start the fixture. Chelsea's team was, yes, indeed, he was. Maybe not. Maybe he didn't. Oh, he was. Sorry, I apologise. I am utterly entirely wrong. He did start the game because he won the penalty, didn't he? From that with the William Saliba handball situation. But I suppose it's the first time we're facing Palmer in the form that he's ever been when we eventually get round to playing Chelsea. And it's going to be a very interesting game. A very, very interesting game indeed. In fact, the first time we do play Chelsea is going to be away from home at Stamford Bridge on November 10th. So that's going to be an exciting one. Going to Lee, who says, would you offload Zinchenko and Jesus in January? Not in January, no, Lee. That would be something for the summer. Gabby says, early to tell, but do you think that we might go for someone in January? I hope so. I think if they find the right player, there's definitely scope for Arsenal. They've got financial freedom. They had a net zero summer, effectively. So there's definitely freedom for them to go and sign someone if they find the right player. And so that's very important as well. AK says, hi, there was a stat I saw that Palmer has scored only 1 non-penalty goal against teams that finished in the top 10 last season. What do you think about that? I mean, he's still scored an incredible number of goals. You can only face what's in front of you. He's still a very good player. So I think both Saka and Palmer are very good players and are 2 of the best players in the Premier League right now. And I think that I can't be asked to get into rival debates about who's better between players unless it's just very obvious, really. Christopher says, who's starting at right back against Southampton? No idea, mate. We have to wait and see who's fit. And if Ben White's fit, I think he starts. If Timber's fit, I think he starts. And you choose between the 2 of them. I think I'd prefer Ben White of the 2 if he's fit, because I think I just kind of manage Timber's fitness a little bit at the moment. I think it's important to keep him fit. If neither of them are fit, then you've got a question mark. Do you play Calafiori? Do you play Partey? Do you bring one of the youngsters in? There are question marks that need to be answered as well. Sign Gyökeres, says Pigets. And look, I think Gyökeres again is having another very good season. I do think some penalty goals are masking something of a not as prevalent of a goal scoring season as last year. I think the penalties are definitely stacking up for Gyökeres and helping with that, but he still had a really, really solid start to this season, and we'll see where he's at come the summer and decide whether or not that is a player that we want to pursue. So yeah, let's wait and see. Christopher says a left-footed right back is awkward. I mean, we've had a right-footed left back for a while at times, and we've done all right. So I don't think it's necessarily too bad. I think we can still get away with it for this specific game, to be honest. Chris says, I'd sell Zinchenko in January and sign a midfielder. We need to make room for Lewis Skelly if Arteta likes it. We don't need to get rid of anyone in January. You know, we are short as a team, as a squad. We still think we need more signings. We still think we need more players. Why are we going to sell players? Why would we still sell players? We need to wait until the summer before we then overhaul the squad. Don't leave ourselves so short. Keep players. Zinchenko is an asset. Zinchenko is still a good player. Zinchenko can still offer us depth. Let's not leave ourselves in difficult positions. I don't think it's needed for us to do that. Ashmael says, remember early in 2024 where we were conceding little to no shots? Do you think that with the tough fixtures out of the way, we could get back to that type of level? I'm not saying that we are not now bad defensively, though. But you're right, we have conceded a few more shots of late, but we have been facing some much better sides. And I think we've had a very challenging start to this season. So, yes, we definitely can get back into that situation. Gabby says, what's your thoughts on Šeško, I should say? The striker window next summer might be interesting. Again, like Jurrien, he is going to be one of those players I think we have to monitor over the course of this campaign. He too has had a very good start to the season. I think there are going to be a number of strikers on the market next summer, or a number of strikers that people will want. Isak's name's going to come back. John Duran's name is going to be around. Šeško, Jurrien, these names, Jimenez, are all going to be talked about. Jimenez, I should say, are all going to be talked about as potential options. Carl says, Tom, Southampton is our bogey team. Do you see another upset like we did the season they were relegated? Didn't beat them in either of the times we faced them. Drew 1-1 at St Mary's and, of course, drew 3-3 at home. They have been something of a bit of a bogey side for us. If you ever look over the history of Arsenal facing Southampton, it's not exactly been the most easy ride when facing that team. In fact, if you ever look over the last few matches Arsenal have faced them, they have only won one of the last 5 meetings. In fact, they've only won 2 of the last 10 games that they have played one another. 3-3 and 1-1 in 2022-3 season. In the 21-22 season, we beat them 1-0 at the Emirates, but lost 3-0. Sorry, we lost 3-0 at the Emirates, but beat them 1-0 away from home. 3-0 we lost at the Emirates. Absolutely. Unless it's... Hold on, I'm looking at this the wrong way around. Sorry, guys. I'm looking at this the wrong way around. Arsenal have won 2 of the last 5 meetings. I was looking at the Southampton record. 2 of the last 5 meetings Arsenal have won, and they have won 1, 2, 3, 4 of the last 11 meetings. So there you go. That's the record. I was looking at it the wrong way around. I still think, in terms of that, like, we don't have a better than 50% win rate against them in the last 10 meetings. So they are still very much, for a side that are considered, a bottom half team or a championship side, very much a challenge that we have struggled to overcome in recent seasons. Liam says, hi, Tom. Do you think the lack of atmosphere at the Emirates against PSG was down to the lack of jeopardy due to the new format? I definitely think, Liam, this was a factor. I do think that the feeling that, there's 6 more games to come. There's not much jeopardy involved. You need like 6 to 8 points to get into the top 24. I don't think there's going to be loads of pressure on Arsenal getting through. But of course, there's more pressure on Arsenal getting into the top 8. And hopefully, over the course of the next 6 games, they will amass enough points to be able to do that. Tizer says, since Odegaard's injury, we now seem to start using the left side more often, which has resulted in Martinelli coming back into form. Should he operate more equally between the left and right when he returns? I don't know. He's naturally more of a right-sided midfielder when he plays in the centre of the midfield 3. I think when Mikel Moreno, of course, established himself, that might help to balance things a little bit more. But Odegaard is so good that, of course, that naturally skews creation to the right-hand side. And, of course, we've also been missing some consistency with the right-back slot. Sometimes it's Ben White, sometimes it's Timber. And Calafiori, I think, has definitely helped on the left. I think he's helped to skew things more towards that side in terms of the presence and the possession. So lots of different things is important. VRL says, I hope that we don't give Partey a new deal. It's time he goes. It's no disrespect or anything. It's just time for him to move on. And I've talked about this before. I think that this season is probably the right time to move on from him and perhaps Jorginho and find the next generation of players to come through into those positions. And the injuries are, of course, something I don't think you can get away from. You can't, escape from. The injuries are a concern always when you've got Partey in the squad. JR Smith says, hi, Tom. First time live viewer. Always listening on audios, though. Thank you, JR. Very much appreciate your kind support and listenership. Who's been your favourite player to watch this season and why? It's probably Jurrien Timber, to be honest. His technical ability has been excellent. The way in which he has progressed the ball has been great. The way he takes players on is fantastic and beats players and nutmegs players, links up play. I think Jurrien Timber's been the most enjoyable player to watch this season. Gabriel, I've really enjoyed watching too. His continuation of his dominance from set pieces. I think I think Timber and Gabriel have stood out for me as two very big players for us over the course of this season so far. And I hope that players like Mikel Moreno, of course, continue to establish themselves in the team. And Calafiori as well, another one I'm looking forward to watching plenty more of too. It's quite a nice question, I think, to finish today's show on. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in, all of you. You are incredibly appreciated, and it is very humbling, of course, as always, to see you here. It's even more so humbling when you drop a like, and if you could do so and help us on our way to reaching our 1K target on the channel every single day, that would also be appreciated. So before you shoot, please do press the thumbs up, and it is really, really helpful to us here. And if you're new to the channel, like JR is, make sure you subscribe. And it is as well hugely appreciated as we try and head towards our 60K 704 seater target for our theoretical TGT Emirates Stadium. So thank you for that. Have a fantastic Saturday. If you're going to the game, enjoy it. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great. And I hope that we can come away with a big, big win. Speak to you soon. And as always, up the Arsenal. And stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful as always too. Bye-bye.